Welcome to another edition of One More Light with me, Val Kleinhans. We have a very special guest in the building today, Miss Kaitlin Anthony. She is a content creator and life and mindset coach for the Do It All woman. You might know her as the Beam Life on pretty much anywhere and everywhere when it comes to social media. Kaitlin, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Val, for asking me to come and share with your community. I am so amped to be here. And I just would love for you to just do an intro for me everywhere I go. I'm like, that was so fun. I'm
That
here
wasn't
for it.
practiced. That was not
I
practiced.
love it.
I free
I
flow
love
it.
it. So good.
I love it too. I wanted to start with what is the do it all woman? Because I saw that in your bio and I was like, huh, does she mean entrepreneurs? That was the first word that came to my head. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it can actually be depending on if you're an entrepreneur or not, right? Like you might interpret it that way. But the way, because everyone always says, like, who do you work with? And it's not an age, because I have clients as young as 25 and as, mature as 65, right? And so it's not an age, it's not a generation, it's not just business owners, it's not just moms. So what is it? It's the do-it-all woman. It's a woman who truly has put herself in so many different categories, whether it's she identifies as being a partner, a mom, a career woman, an entrepreneur, someone who's into maybe multiple hobbies, but a woman who particularly maybe has a hard time saying no to things.
Mm,
That's really like the do it all woman. It's like they're doing it all, but do they really want to do all the things they're doing? Or would they like to just do more of the things that spark joy and make them feel excited about life? Right. So I hope that will get the wheels turning. And it's like, well, what am I doing? And how much of that and where am I spending my time? And is that where I want to be spending my time?
yeah, we don't spend, ironically, we don't spend enough time thinking about where we spend our time. I'm totally like guilty of that. Just as you were describing that, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's most of us, right? Most of us.
because we want to do it all because I mean hustle culture is still very much a thing. It's still very much promoted. It's still very much, I don't know, championed as this idealized achievement
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
need to obtain for ourselves. And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about all that, but there are some things that I want to do. But how much is too much? So when somebody is just so clouded and they can't answer their question for themselves, like how much is too much? Where do I want to divide my time? How do you assist them with that?
Yeah. That is sort of like that particular question is more in the middle of someone's journey. Because typically, when someone's coming into my world or into my coaching container, they're exactly where you're described. So clouded. I don't know the next step to take. I know that I don't like where I'm at, but I'm also comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense, right? Like they don't love their career. They don't love the way they're showing up in their relationships. They don't love how exhausted they are every day, but that's what they know. And we're also being told, as you said, from society that you need to earn rest. You have to hustle and burn out, and then you can take a vacation and then you can rest. And it's so, if you've been subscribing to that, you're probably pretty exhausted. So the thought of slowing down probably seems really foreign. So some of the first steps that we take are learning how to check in with ourselves. And that is very, very fundamental baby steps about typically when I'm first starting with someone, it's hard to catch yourself in the act because you're still getting used to it. So after maybe you've lost your mind on your kid or your partner, or you come home and you're just so exhausted from work and you're in this place, the first step would be ask yourself after the situation, why? What
Mm,
was it that I actually really needed in that moment? Why could I not regulate my emotions? It's okay that you were upset or frustrated, but was the reaction maybe more intense than it needed to be? Or did it affect you in a greater way? And why? What was the need that you needed to get met
Mhm.
that wasn't communicated? So we start by like really some fundamental, like asking ourselves, what do we need? And why are we having these intense reactions? And then we learn how to slow down and check in with ourselves. And I help my clients set up those daily awareness check ins. Like we kind of operate on a scale, like 1 to 10. Where are we at today? And what do we need when
Okay.
we're interacting with the outside world?
So it's very literal. You're literally asking them to sit down and tune everything else out and just go, okay, for 5 seconds or whatever it is,
Hmm.
I'm going to answer the question, where am I at right now? Why
Exactly.
why is it that I blew up last night? What's missing? Because the truth is there's more to it than that. There is a deeper element of something that is unfulfilled. That is why we explode. I mean, I know that's why
100%.
I do, and I would imagine that that's why most other people do as well. We're what was it that made you decide to become a coach in the first place? What sparked that interest?
Yeah, so I've actually been coaching for almost 13 years now in different ways. I graduated and went to FIT in New York, and I was in the fashion world for a long time, and I became a
Jealous.
stylist.
Yeah.
So don't be jealous. It's not as glamorous as it sounds.
Really?
Uh,
Oh, that
oh
sounds
no,
lovely. In New York, I'm styling. Here we go. Emily Ratajkowski, just like at the Starbucks down the corner.
right? It
Best
was
life.
like right when Rachel Zoe was taking off, and it's like everybody was like, oh, "What's a stylist?" And so I was told that's not a career, and now it's like a full blown thing. And so it was at the very beginning of styling, but nonetheless, I was coaching people how to feel confident in their clothes and how to show up on red carpets, how to feel like their best version of themselves. And then I got really into fitness and I started to become a fitness coach. And so I was helping with goals and mindset. And it was so much more than the workout. It was like, what's happening outside of the workouts, right?
Mm.
How are we talking to ourselves? What's going on when we look at ourselves in the mirror? How is our relationship with food? And that was when I was married previously to my now ex husband. And as I started going through a divorce, I realized, I am called to coach. Like coaching is in my DNA, but I don't want to dive back into fashion. Fitness really is more of a hobby to me, something I love, but it's not what I want to do forever. But I do want to coach. What does that look like for me? And so I started really slowing down, asking myself these questions. And I realized it was that I really wanted to coach women, and
Mm.
specifically women who are on the verge of burnout or breakdown, and try to catch them before that breakdown so that we could ultimately have a shift and realize like just because, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s doesn't mean that it's over or that you can't shift gears. Like we have plenty of opportunity at any time to restart and to try something new.
Yeah, especially this day and age with the economy what it is. It's like we
Totally.
to plenty of pivoting moments. I mean, I'm 33 and I've already had like several, but
I
it's
know. It's great.
it sometimes it is necessary. But then, we encounter the kind of woman or even man that you're talking about where they're that dedicated, they're that determined to make something work or to be that entrepreneur and have their life be about their income or whatever it is that they're focused on at the time. So how do you tell that person
Mhm.
protect your mental health when they might not be worried about it?
Yeah. So here's the thing that I had a coach share with me actually on my fitness journey when I first started getting into it. And it has stuck with me all the way. And I now use it with my clients. And when I was going through a big, physical transformation, I lost about 85 pounds at this
Wow.
time. This was like 13 years ago. Um, I was never happy. It
Mm.
was like 10 more pounds. No, I lost the 10, wasn't happy. Okay, 5 more. Nope, still not happy. Okay, 8 more, still not happy. And you can equate pounds to money, to size of your business,
Yeah, yeah.
to amount of friends, like relate it to whatever, how many handbags you have, doesn't matter, right? If you're not finding the current joy along the journey, the destination is not going to be fulfilling. So, what I really try to instill in my clients and the work that we do is how do we find happy now? It's not happily ever after, it's happily ever now, right? Like it's not after we get somewhere because that's the power of our mind. Like, of course, would we feel better getting more money, losing more weight, having a bigger business? Okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure that would bring some amount of temporary joy, but who you are has not changed. So
Mm,
if you're not changing the vehicle, the amount of things are not going to
mhm,
certainly change how you feel, and it's never going to feel like it's enough. So you're in this hamster wheel all the time, and I feel like that's really where our mental health can start to disintegrate is it's never enoughness, right? Like we
mhm,
always need this constant validation or more material things, and it's just exhausting. So why not work on finding peace and joy in the current moment so that you can even enjoy the things you're working for a
mhm.
billion times more when you get there.
Yeah, and part of making those changes is asking for help, something I royally suck at. So my next
Yes.
question was going to be how do we get over the fear of asking for help? Because there's a lot of reasons we don't. We think we'll appear inadequate, we think we'll appear weak, we think we'll, appear stupid or incapable. At least I'm running down that list in my own head.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
those are the reasons why I usually don't ask for help when I really probably should have before I had that burnout moment. So, how do we tell somebody it's okay to ask for help? How do we get over that?
Well, the best way to do it is just practice, right? Like we just got to do it. But I know that's easier said than done. So, great places to start are with people you feel really safe with.
Mm,
So, maybe it feels really challenging to ask for help at work because maybe that's a competitive environment. You don't want to look inferior to your colleagues or whatever. And so, maybe you start at home and maybe it's a simple conversation where you've been frustrated for a long time because someone at home isn't doing the dishes. And I know it seems like, okay, how is this related? But here's the thing by you learning, instead of just internally brewing and doing the dishes out of frustration and resentment,
yep.
learning to have a conversation and say, hey, this is a really hard week for me right now at work. I'm holding a lot of stuff on my shoulders. Do you think that you could help with the dishes for the next 3 nights to just help take some load off of me?
Yeah.
Learning in that little ways or telling a friend, "Hey, I'm going through a really hard time right now. Do you think we could meet for coffee just so that I could have some social interaction and talk about maybe what's going on in my life," right? Practice in really safe environments. For example, in my coaching world, I'm a good safety net for a lot of my clients. They practice asking me for what they need, right? So, is it that they need me to check in with them more? Do they need me to send them some kind of, accountability checklist? Do they need more emotional support that week? So, learning to practice with people that you know it's safe is a great place to like flex that muscle because it is a muscle. And if you don't flex it, it's not going to get stronger. So, it's really important that number one, you practice and then also realize that when we ask people for help, we're actually allowing them to use their gifts
Mm,
because that's a really like when I learned about how certain people like that's why I ask for help. I'm not good at everything. And so I need help from people who are good at the things that I'm not great at. And that is their gift and they are here to do those things. So I was like, I am taking something away from them by not asking for their help and support because think about when you help somebody, like, I don't know about you, but it helps like my cup gets filled. I feel satisfied. And so I think about I'm giving that now to someone else. Someone else feels really good for helping me.
yeah, I've experienced that too, or I've been on the receiving end where they're like, I just have no inclination to do graphic design, or I don't know like what looks good. Like I do the newsletter for my company's orthopedic department, and it's a lot of
Yes.
fun. But the reason I got asked to do it was because I was the only one that A, knew how to put it together, and B, made it look pretty. And they're like, I don't know how to do either of those things. You can, because you went to school for this. Have fun. And I'm like, gosh, because to me, it doesn't feel like
Yes.
I'm working at the time. It just feels like I'm creating and
Yes.
doing what, yeah, I ultimately do enjoy doing. I never thought about it serving the other person in turn. That's a
Yeah,
very, like, I love flipping the script on that. I'm gonna need
totally.
notes on that.
Totally.
Well, so let's talk about the handle the beam life. What does that mean? What does that represent to you? Because that's how you're known pretty much everywhere on
Yeah.
social.
Yeah. So BEAM actually stands for Be Everything and More. And
Mm,
it's funny because originally that's what I wanted to call my business, Be Everything and More. And I was sharing it with a friend, and this was like several years ago. She goes, "You realize the acronym for that is BEAM, right?" And I was like,
maybe.
"Oh my
Oh,
gosh." I was like,
happiness, fun. Yes.
yeah, happening. And I would feel like that's a way people personally probably describe me, but also it's what we do in my like community and coaching world is learning how to spark that internal beam of
Mm,
light,
mhm.
right? Because maybe your light has been dim for a really long time and we just need to crank up the volume on that beam and it feels really good because when we shine internally all of a sudden it's like we can literally see things so much more clear that have
Mm,
been there the whole time but we weren't able to see it because it's like we were walking in the dark. And so that's I love the, you know, using it as a metaphor for light, but also it's fun. It's like electric. It's a beam of light, beam of sun. It is, what we're all striving for is to, be a little lighter.
yeah, it's comforting, and I think it lets your clients know. It gives them a little bit of insight as to what they're getting into. Like, this is
Exactly.
a positive space, a sunny space. That's what I
Yes.
was thinking whenever I first saw the title. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like,
Yes.
want to be happy, you want to be beaming. This is coaching for
Yes.
anybody that wants to be in that position as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure your podcast is called the same thing, the Beam
Yep.
Life.
The beam life. Yep.
Okay. Tell me about the podcast. What I love podcasting just as much.
Yes. Literally, if I could just do one thing in the world and podcast, that's all I would do. I
I
love
know,
it
same.
so much. I love being on other podcasts. I love having people on my podcast. But I actually started my podcast as I was going through my divorce 3.5 years ago because I can talk and speak and think clearly more in a verbal way than I can writing. So while some people may have turned to like a written diary, I was like, I think too fast. I'm also ADHD. I was like, this is like a lot for me to process. I'm just going to start talking. And I was verbally kind of talking about what I was experiencing, literally not expecting it to be anything except for a place for me to go to.
Yeah.
And I had family, friends, members at the gym at the time that I had owned. They were like, this is really good stuff. Like, I'm really resonating with this. Even though I'm not going through a divorce, I can understand what you meant about feeling lost or like you didn't recognize yourself or feeling like, you were overwhelmed and burnt out and, just took a wrong turn somewhere.
Mhm.
And it all of a sudden started like catching momentum. And I was like, wait, maybe this is like a thing. I'm like, do people really podcast? So I started looking into the whole um, world. And, almost 4 years later, here we are. And it's my favorite thing to do. I absolutely love it so much. And we share a lot of similar things as to what we're talking about today. But I'm a life and mindset coach. So anything in that sphere is what I'm usually talking about on my solo episodes. And then I like to bring in experts in other places to share with my community their gifts.
Yeah, to fill in the blanks. I mean, because
Yeah.
honestly, that's how I look at it too. I'm not a mental health expert, but what I do believe in is peer to peer conversation when it comes to
Hmm.
breaking stigma and talking about the things that we're struggling with. And of course, I'm certainly not an expert in, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not a mental health professional at all. So it does help to have them come in, share their journey, share what they're learning, share what they
Totally.
actually studied. And then it gives it credibility, but it also is really, really interesting. It's like podcasts are kind of like selecting that college class that you wanted to go to, but maybe you didn't take because you
Totally.
had the credits and you were just like, I'm not that worried about it. But you're doing it for fun because you just want
Yes.
to do it. That's always how I've looked at it. What's next for you? What can we look forward to coming from you soon?
Yeah, so I'm actually I'm announcing it today in my energy workshop that I'm hosting, but I am adding in a group coaching cuz much like you, I'm very much into peer-to-peer community. So my newest thing that I'm adding is called Ignite, and it will be a group mastermind coaching program. So for those that want something that's a little more than just looking at a master class or a module and having to log in on your own. This is more of a community type experience, but it's a lower ticket price than one-on-one coaching. So I'm very excited about it. I thrive in community type environments and learning from one another. So that's the newest for me, and then I'm hoping in 2024 to have an in-person event at some point. So that's what's on the ballot for the Beam Life.
Yeah, that would probably make it all worth it whenever you see the faces of the people. I mean, you probably do, I don't know, digitally, or
Yes.
maybe you do meet
Yes.
up with them locally, but to see everybody just like in one room has to be an
Oh,
amazing feeling.
yes. I literally like manifest it every day. I'm like, okay, who's there? What's our room like? So I'm bringing it in. It's gonna happen 2024.
We're ready. Thank you so much for your time, Caitlin. I cannot wait to see what's next. Very much appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Val.